Under a bright, hot summer sky, a voice complains about the oppressive heat. Fanning herself, the elderly woman wonders why the man in room 106 is late and tells Tyr they must wait. The blonde girl, Tyr, happily agrees to continue waiting for her father. A calendar marks the passage of time as several August days are crossed off. 10 nights pass without Tyr's father returning, while the woman fans the sleeping girl. A warm memory shows the black-haired man wearing a cap holding little Tyr. Narrative reveals her father was a powerful knight in the Talokium Empire who fought monsters and villains daily. The story shifts back to the present where Tyr is now 4 years old. A whimsical drawing depicts a heroic mascot knight surrounded by treasure and fans. Tyr asks why her father works daily, and the dark-haired woman explains his difficult job pays poorly. The women pity Tyr while the girl laments that her father cannot afford a new sticker book. Whimsical illustrations show characters visiting amusement parks and the beach. Other children encourage Tyr to visit those places with her father, leaving her in awe. Narrative notes that Tyr and her father have never been able to visit such places. Little Tyr gazes forward with a hopeful smile. Neighbors discuss the father's appearance and worry about Tyr's lack of birth registration, fearing deportation or legal trouble. They fear jail for the father and appreciate the kindergarten principal for accepting the unregistered child. Local elders praise Tyr for being an exceptionally smart and clever child. In another memory, the father promises they will one day return home to a better life. He vows to make Tyr laugh every single day as they play together. Little Tyr laughs joyfully during their time together in the past. A drawing pad captures a simple, heartfelt prayer for her father to return home. The young girl rests, still waiting for the eventual return of her parent. The dark-haired woman rushes in frantically, shouting that something terrible has happened. Startled, the elderly woman scolds her for making a fuss and scaring everyone. The crying woman hands over a document that leaves the elderly woman in visible shock. Horrified by the news, the elderly woman panics and wonders what they should do. In a frantic rush, she tells Tyr to stay put and wait while they investigate. Tyr watches silently as the adults run off, leaving her drawing behind on the porch. The girl notices the discarded paper and reads words concerning funeral services and regulations. A small hand reaches out to pick up the official white document from the floor. Tyr reads a notice about a deceased individual without family ties named Kim Young-soo. Stunned, the girl kneels on the porch and stares at the word indicating death. She envisions her father coming home with groceries and a smile, just like before. Reality sets in as she realizes the term deceased refers to a person who has died. A sudden, heavy downpour drenches the neighborhood buildings, shifting the mood. The elderly woman stands soaked in the rain, carrying a plain white box. She approaches the girl and acknowledges the long wait she has endured. The woman weeps while embracing Tyr, lamenting the child's tragic situation as the box sits nearby. Despite using her special sticker as a prayer, her father did not return. She recalls his smiling face and his promise to keep her happy every day. Late at night, Tyr lies awake while the elderly woman sleeps beside her on the floor. The young girl stares into the darkness with wide, luminous green eyes. She quietly crawls across the room toward a storage area in the shadows. Tyr reaches up to retrieve the white box containing her father's effects. Opening the box, she finds her father's wallet, keys, and a jeweled medallion. She gently touches the items, identifying each one as belonging to her father. A single, large tear wells up in the girl's eye as she mourns. Tyr picks up the ornate gold medallion featuring a glowing red gemstone. Clutching her father's golden medallion, Tyr weeps for her lost parent. Her internal thoughts emphasize that her only wish is for her daddy. Tyr collapses on the floor, wailing beside her father's empty box. As Tyr cries, the ornate medallion begins to glow with intense light. Startled, the girl watches as the magical object floats into the air. A mysterious voice from the medallion asks why she is crying so hard. Tyr stares in shock, realizing that the stone is actually speaking to her. The medallion glows brighter while repeating its question regarding her sorrowful tears. In a burst of magic, the medallion transforms into a small black dragon. Tyr is utterly amazed, wondering if the transformation she witnessed was magic. The black dragon, Kamangpang, bluntly observes that Tyr's father has passed away. Tyr's wails intensify as the harsh reality of her father's death settles in. Kamangpang watches the girl's intense grief with glowing red, inquisitive eyes. The small dragon gently touches Tyr's head to comfort the distraught girl. Tyr looks up with tear-filled eyes, silenced by the creature's gentle touch. Kamangpang asks if she will stop crying if he brings her father back. He explains that she must abandon her current life to see him again. Kamangpang gazes toward the horizon, preparing to use his ancient, powerful magic.
Tyre envisions her father's smiling face, remembering where she truly belongs.
Resolving to find him, Tyre wipes her eyes and agrees to go.
Tyre begs Kamangpong to save her father as magical light surrounds her.
A massive surge of energy begins the girl's journey through time and space. A pillar of celestial light erupts, crossing the boundaries of different worlds. The scene shifts to a sunny meadow where a white tent stands. Tyr lies in a deep sleep after the taxing journey between worlds.
She continues to plead for her father's safety even while unconscious.
Tyr wakes up in the unfamiliar tent and immediately calls for her father. Startled, she screams and asks the horned boy sitting nearby who he is. Tyr notices the boy's black horns and realizes his true draconic identity.
She excitedly asks if Kamangpong has the ability to transform into a human.
Looking outside, Tyr realizes the beautiful landscape is not her old home. Tyr gazes upward in wonder at the bright, vast sky of the new world. She recalls her father's words about his beautiful and incomparably large homeland. The boy explains that he could not bring her father back from death. He clarifies that they have traveled 7 years before Tyr was ever born. Tyr's brain has clearly encountered a fatal 404 error. A sudden realization hits Tyr as she processes the dragon's confusing explanation. A whimsical vision depicts Tyr happily riding on the back of the dragon.
Tyr praises Kamangpong's amazing magic, much to the young boy's visible annoyance.
The boy explains he used his full power to cross through different dimensions. He sighs to himself, wondering why he is even bothering to explain everything. Tyr looks up with hope, thrilled by the prospect of seeing her father. Kamangpong reminds her that her father is definitely alive in this world. The small dragon warns that there is no guarantee they will meet him. Tyr envisions herself walking happily through the park with her father once more. Despite the risks, Tyr smiles with a heart full of hope and determination. A narrative note mentions the place where holy knights gather is the Order. Tyr triumphantly declares their success and holds the small dragon high in excitement. In the Brioed forest, a rugged man complains that his food tastes terrible. The man sits by a fire, noting that traps are failing because of monsters. A gloved hand holds an old map marked with several red points of interest. Monsters emerge from a spatial rift as the narrator explains their endless arrival. The rugged man stares ahead with a grim and intense expression. A monstrous bird shrieks while the survivor reflects on his narrow escape from death. Amidst bloody combat, he persists and remembers those he fights for. Exhausted and covered in blood, the man sighs over his continued survival. He decides to return to the Order, but is suddenly alerted by something. Brandishing his hammer, the man wonders if a creature triggered his trap. Hiding behind a tree, Tyr realizes her situation has become incredibly dangerous. Staring at the distant tent, the girl wonders why her progress is slow. A black creature flies over Tyr as she stands in a flowery meadow. Tyr calls out to Kamangpong while wishing she possessed wings to travel faster. The dragon rejects the name Tyr gave him and reveals his telepathic abilities. Astonished, the girl asks if he is actually a legendary puppetmon. The small dragon explains he is powerless after using his energy for her. Kamang sacrificed his full strength to ensure Tyr's wish could be fulfilled. Regretful, the young girl decides she must be more grateful for his help. Tyr offers to massage his shoulders using techniques she learned at her kindergarten. The dragon declines the girl's offer while she tries to be helpful. He warns that teleportation magic would allow their enemies to track them. Tyr cries out in shock as the dragon reverts into a golden medallion. She assumes he is simply resting within his artifact form like a puppetmon. Stowing the medallion in her bag, Tyr promises to reach the Order safely. Determined to succeed, the little girl marches forward with her fist raised. Tyr is suddenly yanked into the air as she triggers a hidden trap. A dark, menacing figure with glowing eyes appears before the startled child. Suspended in a rope net, Tyr gazes down with wide, fearful eyes. The rugged man looms over the trapped girl with his massive hammer. In a panic, Tyr begs the medallion for protection against the stranger. She tries to remain brave and reassures her companion despite her obvious terror. The man looks completely bewildered by the child's presence and her strange behavior. Narrative text confirms that Bastoferix is entirely confused by the current situation. Monsters roam the forest where the young child now finds herself alone. Suspended in the air, the girl struggles while caught in the hunter's trap. Tyr claims her father is nearby, but the man remains skeptical of her story. He smiles and suggests that her father would be horrified to see her trapped. Tyr flinches in terror as the bloody man reaches out to untie her. The girl screams for help while the man tells her to attract her father's attention. Weeping, Tyr continues to insist that her father is close by and will arrive soon. The man sighs and acknowledges that her crying becomes more intense regarding her father. He releases her onto a small rug and tells her to go to her parrot. Tyre identifies him as a kidnapper due to his filthy appearance and dangerous weapons. The man clarifies that the trap was intended for rabbits, not for kidnapping children. He promises to stay away so that she can leave without feeling threatened. Crouching behind bushes, the man urges the girl to hurry back to safety. Tyr looks back at the stranger before turning to run into the woods.
The girl sprints through the forest as a small bird follows her path.
Basto decides to follow the girl secretly to ensure she finds her parents. Tyre suddenly trips and falls flat on her face while trying to escape. The man watches in disbelief as the child collapses after taking only 3 steps. Tyre whimpers in pain as she clutches her injured leg. A deep scrape on the girl's knee bleeds through her dress. The rugged man stares in shock at the child's sudden injury. Basto carefully bandages Tyre's leg while she asks about his food. The man explains all meat tastes similar while Tyre compares it to beef. Basto suspects Tyr is a noble based on her refined food preferences. He realizes her father is truly missing despite her earlier claims. The man concludes that the child is actually lost and alone. Basto demands the truth regarding her father's current location. Tyr nervously reveals that her father is actually at the Order. Basto is stunned, noting the Order is a 5-day journey away. A pot of hot soup bubbles steadily over the campfire. He questions her previous lie while Tyr struggles to explain herself.
Ty recalls her teacher's advice on how to handle potential kidnappers.
She remembers the protocol to remain calm if things go wrong. Tyr whispers kindergarten negotiation tactics while Basto's strength makes them unnecessary. Basto observes her strange behavior while the soup finishes cooking. The child claims she is fine as the man prepares her meal. A fleeting memory of a family meal haunts the rugged warrior. Tyr watches the man with wide, curious eyes. The man offers a rare, warm smile while serving the soup. He hands the steaming bowl to the hungry little girl. Tyr encourages herself by remembering that her father is waiting. The girl beams with joy as she accepts the warm meal. Basto explains his mission involves reporting a magic stone to the Order. Tyr's face falls when she realizes she is eating carrot soup. Basto urges her to eat for the energy needed to travel. Singing a kindergarten song, Tyr forces herself to eat the carrots. She is pleasantly surprised by the sweet taste and wants more.
Tyr excitedly asks for a second helping of the delicious soup.
She notices strange writing at the bottom of the empty bowl. Basto stops suddenly as the girl inspects the bowl's markings. Tyr is shocked to find she can read this world's language. She realizes they are communicating perfectly despite speaking different languages. Tyr credits the incredible magical power of the dormant black dragon. She hugs her back, wishing the dragon could share the soup. Under the starry sky, Tyr prays to see her loved ones stand. The young girl drifts into a peaceful sleep on the grass.
Basto looks at the sleeping child with a surprisingly gentle expression.
The man carries Tyr toward their distant destination the next morning. Tyr happily shares her dreams of a future where everyone is strong. 4 days later, they finally arrive at the gates of the Order. Basto is outraged when the guards refuse to let them enter. A board official reiterates the order, denying the man's entry. The guard reveals Bastos' mercenary ID has been terminated, ending their journey. They relocate to a nearby inn while Bastos seethes with anger. Basto slams the table, blaming a man named Carl Warben. The inn's proprietress scolds Basto for his disruptive behavior. The woman roughly cleans Tyr's face while ignoring her protests. Tyr recalls being cleaned similarly by the elderly woman back home. The inn's proprietor expresses shock at the sudden termination of Basto's ID.
Basto suspects foul play, believing someone bribed the knights to expel him.
Basto intimidatingly asks the official if he knows his recent whereabouts. The rugged man mentions the troublesome magic stones on the Order's outskirts. Basto recounts his dangerous mission attacking a magic stone in Briowood. The official mockingly points out the reported achievements in the records. He claims the Deathhound mercenary group already reported the successful mission. The official accuses Basto of trying to steal another's achievement. He orders Basto to leave quietly to avoid being forcibly expelled. Basto's rage flares as he recalls a man named Carl Warben. A flashback reveals Carl Warben promising to look after Basto's family. Basto's menacing aura terrifies the surrounding knights and officials. Tyr gently places her small hand on the rugged man's case. The young girl asks the angry warrior if he is okay. Basto stares down at the child, his intense anger momentarily softening. Tyr observes that despite his scary face, he looks deeply sad. Basto apologizes for the delay and promises they will reach the Order. Tyr beams and reassures him that the delay is perfectly fine. Guards mock the crazy mercenary group leader as he walks away. Basto determines he must find lodging and formulate a new plan. Basto criticizes the Order for blocking entry while civilians are suffering. Homeless refugees gather around fires outside the protected walls of the Order. Back at the inn, the proprietor tells Basto to stop his shabbing. The innkeeper's wife pinches Tyr's clean cheeks while praising her licks. The proprietor advises Basto to control his anger for their collective safety.
Basto admits his frustration over people dying while Tyre watches him.
The older man suggests Basto is homesick for his lost village.
The innkeeper's wife brings up the tragedy that struck Ban Ara village. Tyr's eyes widen in shock as she hears the familiar name.
The two men pause, noticing the little girl's sudden, intense reaction.
Tyre mispronounces the village name as Banana while seeking clarification. A sudden realization strikes Tyr as she connects the name to her memories.
Basto confirms the village was his home while looking extremely puzzled.
The girl triumphantly declares that she knows the secret of his hometown.
In a memory, Tyr's father explains the value of super strong people.
The father laughs while Tyr asks if his subordinates were legendary puppetmon.
He identifies his closest subordinate as the legendary Hammermister.
The father explains the Death Hound mercenary group's name to the child.
Shadows show the hierarchy of the mercenary group based in Ban Ara.
Tyr and her father giggle at the tool-related names of his subordinates.
Tyr tells Basto her father said Carl betrayed him and ran away.
The father's memory explains Carl's lazy habits and constant demands of Basto.
Carl promised to guard Basto's family whenever the warrior left for missions. Narrative text notes the arrival of a disastrous day for Ban Ara village.
Monsters swarmed the village in broad daylight due to a rare event.
The father emphasizes the extreme danger they faced in that moment.
Basto had unfortunately been away on a mission when the attack began.
Villagers beg a hungover Carl to summon the mercenaries for protection.
Carl dismissively tells the panicked townspeople to wait inside their homes.
Carl abandons the burning village in a carriage loaded with pits.
Narration explains that the villagers waited for Carl but were killed by monsters.
Basto Ferrix screams in agonizing grief while holding a bloodied, lifeless body.
Drinking through a straw, Tyr recalls Hammermister leaving the Death Hound group. Tyr remembers her father explaining how Carl bribed knights to erase Basto's identification.
Shouting in the end, Tyr realizes Carl blocked Basto's entry to the order.
Tyr recalls her father, the top-ranked warrior, meeting a lonely Hammermister.
Her father explains he gave the strong, kind warrior a new identity.
Tyr determines she must find her father quickly to help Basto.
The young girl remains confident that her father can solve Basto's current predicament.
Pondering her situation, Tyr realizes reaching her father requires entering the order.
She clutches her head in frustration, unable to figure out how to enter.
Tyr groans in mental exhaustion, describing her difficult situation as a catch-22.
A full moon shines brightly over the quiet inn at night.
Tyr falls into a deep sleep while her forehead remains wrinkled from worry.
Basto's gloved hands gently pull the white blanket up to tuck Tyr in.
The rugged mercenary sits beside the bed, watching the sleeping child with concern.
Basto wonders if there is another way to enter the order or someone trustworthy to take the child.
He looks down at Tyr, reflecting on the brevity of their recent meeting.
Basto sleeps on a floor mat beside Tyr's bed as moonlight fills the room.
Red eyes peek out from the partially unzipped pink backpack on the bed.
The small black dragon observes that Tyr looks peaceful and unaffected by recent events.
The dragon expresses relief that the young girl managed to travel so far alone.
A blue spectral boy sits on the bed, wishing to stay with Tyr longer.
The spectral boy notes his power is not yet fully restored as he watches.
He reaches out a glowing hand to gently touch the sleeping girl's forehead.
The next morning, Tyr rubs her eyes while sleepily walking down the stairs. The innkeeper's wife explains Basto left early and invites Tyr to go shopping.
Ty raises her arms happily and agrees to accompany the elderly woman.
Street vendors in the busy market shout their prices for iron, fish, and produce.
A man barks an order for a seated traveler to move out of the way.
Holding the woman's hand, Tyr looks back at the crowd with a curious expression. The woman sighs, explaining that large magic stones have caused a severe manpower shortage. Tyr observes a ragged, barefoot child, remembering Basto's words about the suffering refugees.
She recalls Basto's anger regarding the order blocking entry to displaced, homeless civilians. Tyr realizes that everyone outside the order's walls is struggling in poverty.
A large man screams at a cloaked figure, accusing them of touching his wallet.
The angry man violently punches the cloaked person as onlookers watch the assault.
Tyr looks on in horror, shouting that people should not hit one another.
The cloaked traveler falls to the ground while the aggressor stands over them.
A memory shows a man preparing to strike a woman kneeling on the floor.
Tyr recalls a woman from room 203 who was frequently beaten by a man.
Despite her bandages, the kind woman from Tyr's past offers to buy her ice cream.
Tyr courageously stands between the large man and the traveler, demanding he stop hitting.
The innkeeper's wife and bystanders look on in total shock at the girl's intervention.
The man snarls in fury, wondering what is wrong with the meddling child.
Bystanders begin to defend the traveler, shouting for the man to stop his accusations.
The man's face reddens with rage as he realizes the crowd is turning against him. The innkeeper's wife confronts the man, warning him about the desperate people in the alleys.
She sternly warns that status means nothing here and he could end up a corpse.
The man breaks into a cold sweat, visibly shaken by the woman's chilling warning. The pig-like man flees while complaining about his bad luck. Tyr beams while the hooded traveler hunches over in pain. The innkeeper's wife questions why the traveler hasn't visited lately.
The traveler angrily tells the old woman to mind her business.
The woman scolds the traveler's manners and questions his appearance.
Staring into a mirror, the traveler curses his battered, scratched face. Tyr wonders if she really helped a good person today.
The traveler's intense expression and bruised face leave Tyr completely terrified.
The woman orders Tyr to eat and the traveler to clean.
She points toward a bowl of water and a clean cloth.
The traveler refuses the cloth and threatens to smash it back.
He roughly wipes his face while grumbling inaudibly at Tyr. Tyr asks if the mean traveler actually stole the man's wallet. The child warns that a tiger takes away mean people, Ani.
The traveler reacts with extreme shock to the girl's sudden warning.
Standing up, the traveler angrily asks who the girl is addressing. He complains about everyone mistaking his gender due to his appearance.
The traveler reveals he is actually a boy, shocking the girl. A full-body shot shows the beautiful boy shouting in intense frustration.
Sparkles surround the long-haired boy as he continues his loud outburst.
Tyr is stunned, struggling to process that her Ani is male.
She admits she has never seen a boy look so feminine.
Basto enters as the boy admits to taking the man's wallet.
The boy clarifies that he simply reclaimed his own stolen property.
A flashback shows the pig-like man tricking the boy earlier.
Tyr and Basto listen as the boy mentions forming a group.
The boy notes he must become a mercenary to hunt monsters.
He explains the requirement of an identification card and an exam. A bright idea strikes Tyr as she looks at the boy. Tyr excitedly suggests that she and the boy form a group.
The young girl stands on a stool, full of determined energy.
The boy stares at Tyr with a look of pure disbelief.
He calls her a brat and demands skilled partners for money.
The boy identifies as an assassin, making Tyr even more enthusiastic. He questions her backpack while Tyr praises Basto's incredible strength.
Basto looms behind the boy, questioning who he called a hammer.
Tyr excitedly introduces Basto to the boy as the legendary Hammer Mister.
Basto states his full name and asks about the mercenary perk.
The boy dismissively wonders about the large muscle pig before him.
Basto claims he can handle magic stones alone, surprising the boy.
He explains his lost identification number but long mercenary history.
Basto mentions his recent mission as Tyr encourages their partnership.
The boy begins to suspect Basto is the true magic hunter.
Flashbacks show the Death Hound group receiving undeserved credit for missions.
The boy reflects on Carl's nasty attitude and his nightly connections.
He recalls the reports about the small magic stone in Briowed.
The boy realizes Basto is the warrior cheated by Carl Werbin. Tyr screams about Carl stealing Basto's achievements and erasing his identity.
Basto states his goal is reclaiming his ID to enter the Order.
He explains his promise to take Tyr to her father's location.
Shocked that Basto isn't the girl's father, Vale laughs at the realization.
Looking at their faces, the boy concludes they both look too simple-minded to be lying.
He reflects on the treacherous nature of mercenaries who steal achievements and erase identities.
The cloaked boy laments his long search for capable comrades and the fear of betrayal.
Recalling impoverished children, he determines to focus on making money rather than wasting time.
Overwhelmed by frustration, the young man clutches his head and groans in annoyance.
Slamming a fist onto the table, he calls out to the large mercenary.
Vale Theodore introduces himself and warns that he will abandon anyone who cannot pull their weight.
Basto counters by advising the boy to run away effectively instead of becoming an encumbrance.
The mercenary group is officially formed despite the tension between the new partners.
Tyr jumps with joy, thrilled to have successfully formed a team for their mission.
As they walk through the woods, the boy grumbles about having to hold the child's hand.
Waving a stick with a caterpillar, Tyr praises the strength of her two new teammates.
Tyr excitedly mentions a legendary puppetmon while the boy wonders why she is so energetic. The young girl boasts about her past victories in school games and her monster-catching potential.
Tyr runs ahead confidently, telling her companions not to worry about her safety.
Striking a heroic pose with her twig, the girl declares her own immense strength.
A large gloved hand rests on Tyr's shoulder to stop her enthusiastic play.
Basto sternly informs the girl that she will not be participating in the monster hunt. Ty's face drains of color as she experiences a moment of profound shock.
Narrative text notes that the child had been entirely unaware of the upcoming reality.
Basto warns that monsters are dangerous, while Vale asks what she fears most.
Tyr visualizes a fierce dinosaur, comparing it to the monsters they might face.
Basto explains that actual monsters are 10 times more terrifying than any dinosaur. A violent explosion rocks the forest, illustrating the true horror the child never imagined.
Surrounded by floating embers, Tyr cries out in fear for her companions.
Dropping her stick in terror, the girl trembles as Basto reiterates the danger.
An elderly fortune teller named Nordic's Omen arrives to watch over the child.
Tyr is instructed to stay behind and wait quietly with the old man.
The three companions stand with the fortune teller as the sun begins to set.
Basto promises to return soon, thanking the man for his help through a mutual contact.
Feeling incredibly tense, Tyr recalls her father's own warnings about the scariness of monsters. In a memory, her father describes the variety and unpredictability of monster attacks. A sharp reminder warns against the dangers of being immature in such a world.
Clutching her dress tightly, Tyr resolves to wait patiently as she was told. The long-haired boy teases the girl, telling her not to cry while they are away.
Veins of anger pop up as the child reacts to the boy's mocking tone. Tyr indignantly shouts that she isn't a little kid, but the boy dismisses her claim.
He brings up her past crying, leading Tyr to scream about the difference between a child and a little kid. Sticking his tongue out, Vale continues to mock the girl's intelligence and school achievements.
Basto breaks up the bickering as they depart, while Tyr makes a final rude face.
The young girl gazes longingly after the large mercenary, whispering a soft goodbye.
Vale is outraged that he was excluded from her farewell, while Basto ignores the outburst. Pouting, Tyr finally tells the boy to be careful as well during the mission.
Vale chuckles at the child's humor, questioning her motives for wanting to fight monsters.
As they walk through the Twilight Forest, Basto speculates that the girl might be noble-born.
They reach Tenebrum Cave, now a monster base, while Basto recalls the child's strange family names.
Lighting a lantern, the boy expresses skepticism about a name being so unusual.
Basto recounts Tyr's claim that her father's name is Kim Young-soo, a format completely foreign to them.
Entering the dark cave, Vale doubts they can find her father with such bizarre information.
Vale reflects on his companion's strange behavior and his black market intel.
A tragic memory depicts the destruction of Basto's home, Ban Ara Village.
Vale considers Basto's legendary skills a perfect opportunity for his goals.
Exploring the labyrinthine maze, Vale notes magic stones in every room. Vale plans a quick strike on a stone near the entrance.
Preparing for battle, the partners resolve to give their absolute best.
Basto grips his massive hammer tightly, ready for the upcoming fight. A dark, jagged crack suddenly tears through the stone corridor's walls. The ominous rupture expands rapidly, emitting pulses of chaotic purple energy.
Panic strikes the duo as the massive rift spreads behind them.
Vale rushes forward, realizing the anomaly is far beyond their expectations.
Horror fills Vale's eyes as he discovers a medium magic stone.
Vale screams for Basto to run as the stone's energy erupts.
Outside, Nordix dozes off while Tyr waits patiently by the tent.
Looking toward the cave, Tyr wonders if her companions are safe.
Clutching her locket, the child begs her mysterious friend to wake.
A sudden, deafening tremor from the earth catches Tyr completely off guard. Terrified by the shaking world, Tyr screams for Basto and Vale.
A catastrophic explosion of fire and debris obliterates the cave entrance.
The force of the blast sends massive boulders flying into the air.
Nordix shields the child from the flames, noting the dire situation.
A monstrous flame-covered hound lunges from the inferno with bared teeth.
Nordix orders Tyr to flee while he draws the monster's attention.
Panting in terror, the young girl runs blindly into the darkness.
Overwhelmed by fear and sorrow, Tyr desperately wishes this wasn't happening.
Deep in the cave, Basto sustains a bloody wound during combat. Countless monsters swarm the two mercenaries as they struggle to survive.
Shadowy figures show the companions being overwhelmed by the massive beasts.
Tyr gazes at her box of treasures, feeling small and helpless.
The child collapses to the ground, a white void of despair.
Heartbroken, Tyr laments her inability to protect those she cares about.
Clasping her hands, the child begs for any god's divine intervention. Tyr's desperate prayer manifests as a swirling vortex of green energy. Radiant green power erupts from the girl's small, determined hands.
A colossal skeleton with glowing eyes rises to answer Tyr's call.
The massive summon crushes a monster with its bare skeletal hands. Bloodied and weary, Vale snarls in pure rage at his attackers.
Basto drives his heavy hammer into the jaw of a Loxer. A monster is violently struck down by a crushing blow.
Basto realizes the magic stone grew with impossible speed since yesterday. Vale gasps for air, realizing they cannot defeat the endless horde. Driven to the brink, Vale prepares to drink poison to escape. A blinding flash of light interrupts the boy's final, desperate act.
A massive bone weapon descends, obliterating the monster threatening the boy.
Vale watches in disbelief as a giant skeletal warrior joins the fray.
A legion of skeletons emerges to ruthlessly slaughter the monster pack. The skeletal army turns the tide, systematically dismantling the beast horde.
A pillar of white energy slams into the ground amidst the chaos.
Stunned, Vale watches as the surviving monsters are dragged into shadows.
Vale realizes a terrifying scream is echoing from deep beneath the earth.
Basto grabs the gasping boy's collar and shouts his reign.
Basto questions the boy about his hidden magic, but Vale reveals he was nearly dead and thought the mercenary was responsible for the rescue.
Basto wonders who could have performed the feat if not Thale.
Narrative text identifies the summoned skeletons as creatures of dark necromancy.
As they recover, narrative text notes necromancy is only found in legends.
Basto and Vale realize a terrifyingly powerful mage is nearby.
Basto and Vale question the purpose of the skeletons that saved them. A bright green light illuminates the forest path before them.
A close-up reveals the young girls sobbing with relief.
Tyr stands amidst her skeletal summons, clutching a skull and crier.
The girl wails in joy after finding her companions are alive.
Tyr runs to her teammates, crying that she feared their deaths. A skeleton gently pats the sobbing child's head.
Tyr announces Nordix's arrival while the men stare in total shock.
The girl continues to sob while standing beside a large skeleton. Tyr asks if they almost became bone friends while the skeletons tell her not to say such bad things.
Basto and Vale remain frozen in disbelief at the strange scene.
A skeletal hand points toward a specific direction in the woods.
Nordix Omen arrives wounded and exhausted as Tyr greets him happily.
Tyr claims the outcome matches exactly what the bone friends predicted.
Tyr explains the skeletons know everything from being underground and defeated the monsters, then asks her bone friends about the course.
Nordix asks if they are safe, and Vale confirm they are.
Nordix realizes the child was likely the one who summoned them.
Basto concludes Tyr summoned them and hears things they cannot.
Nordix reflects on the child's hidden ability appearing so suddenly.
Tyr asks if monster cores are needed for the mercenary exam.
Tyr excitedly notes her bone friends collected all the monster cores.
A skeleton presents a pile of cores as Vale realizes the anomaly was cleared with impossible precision.
Basto watches in surprise as Tyr begins collecting the monster cores.
Nordix explains that the child was born with immense magical power.
Nordix notes the child's power awakened unknowingly, which shocks the group.
Vale explains how rare and early her awakening is, calling Tyr the strongest and most incredible kid.
Tyr looks confused as she repeats the words incredible and strongest.
The child experiences a moment of profound shock and realization.
Tyr recalls her father boasting about being the strongest in existence.
Clutching a skull, Tyr loudly declares that blood is thicker than water.
The three men look on, bewildered by her sudden declaration.
The girl looks around her with a renewed sense of purpose.
Tyr confidently states that her father is the world's strongest person. Tyr claims her father is a super strong holy knight and her power was inherited, leaving Basto pensive and sweating.
Basto reflects on the suspicious nature of finding her alone.
Narrative text explains the two types of power, holy and magical.
Narrative text notes that holy power and magic are polar opposites.
Narrative text highlights the impossibility of a holy knight's child using magic.
Vale considers the social stigma and rarity of having opposite powers.
Narrative text mentions superstitions that children with opposite powers bring disaster.
Vale realizes only one noble family fits the title of strongest. Narrative text identifies the noble family of high-purity knights as House Luminen.
Basto and Vale exchange a silent, heavy look of realization.
The young girl prepares to reveal a long-held family secret. Tyr explains she once lived happily in a cozy home with her father. The black-haired boy questions how a noble family could live in poverty.
Tyr describes her tiny childhood home and the freezing winter water conditions.
Clasping a skull, the determined child prepares for a difficult explanation.
With a tearful eye, Tyr explains her father left while the men listen.
Clutching her locket, the girl mentions her mysterious friend is currently asleep.
Vale realizes Tyr unknowingly summoned a permanent spirit that will find her father.
The child cheers, hoping the mercenary exam leads her to her daddy.
The boy expresses absolute shock that a father could forget his daughter.
Tyr clarifies that time-traveling magic sent her to a time before her birth.
Sobbing, the girl explains magic erased her from her father's memories entirely.
The mercenaries whisper about the sheer cruelty of the child's tragic situation.
A flashback reveals a man fleeing a noble mansion with an infant. The father and child sought refuge in a humble, stable-like dwelling.
Someone nearby resented the pair's simple life and sought to end it. Magic forcibly erased the girl from her father's mind, leaving her abandoned. The three companions stand in stunned silence at the heartbreaking revelation. A lonely child stands in the void, clutching a single bone fragment.
Vale erupts in a furious rage, cursing those who abandoned the child.
Dust particles dance in the moonlight of the quiet stone corridor.
Basto advises hiding the child's identity while they investigate the noble family.
Vale argues that the heartless family might hunt her if discovered alive. Basto calms the group before Vale suddenly shouts for the girl's attention. Placing a hand on her head, Vale declares she will join them.
The boy admits there is no precedent for such a young mercenary.
Vale clarifies that a 4-year-old cannot be officially registered as a mercenary.
The boy promises to find a way to reunite her with her father.
Basto vows to help the child to repay his life-saving debt.
The gray-haired elder nods solemnly, agreeing to assist in her quest.
Tyr looks up with shimmering eyes, moved by their unexpected kindness.
Basto warns the girl to keep her incredible magic hidden from everyone.
The men explain that her immense power will attract very dangerous people.
Ty refuses Vale's joke about being hidden and carried inside a bag.
The child considers the difficult task of hiding her true identity. Like small animals hiding from predators, Tyr worries about remaining invisible. Tyr imagines herself as a muscular warrior, so no one will bother her.
A spark of realization lights up the young girl's bright green eyes.
The child recalls a capable elder and resolves to become just as strong.
The girl calls out to the large mercenary to share her thoughts.
Tyr enthusiastically announces that she has come up with a brilliant idea.
The three men stare at the child with expressions of pure confusion.
The scene shifts to the massive stone walls of a grand city.
The group arrives at the Orders Gate, Basto carrying the hooded child.
Nearby citizens watch the strange travelers with suspicion and growing curiosity.
The partners agree to make Tyr the secret boss of her group. Hidden beneath a dark hood, Tyr holds the legendary Staff of Sotrix.
White lilies bloom as the child prepares to hide her true strength.
A heavy pouch spills out a collection of glowing, colorful magic cores.
An official gasps in disbelief upon seeing a rare medium-grade monster core.
Vale lists the specific monster counts gathered for the group's registration.
The official skeptically compares the group's odd composition to their impressive haul. Suspicious of the high-quality cores, the official questions the group's origins.
Startled, the official realizes a small voice is addressing him from below.
The hooded child demands respect, claiming to be a great archmage.
An awkward silence falls as the official stares down at the child.
The official is utterly dumbfounded to find a child lead the group.
The ground beneath the child begins to tremble and crack violently.
A massive skeleton erupts from the floor, terrifying the registration official.
Chaos erupts in the hall as witnesses scream about the summoned creature.
The child calmly orders her skeletal summon to take a defensive position.
Trembling, the official demands the child identify herself and state her name. Basto fiercely rebukes the official for speaking insolently to his small leader.
The child instructs Basto to stand down and let her handle it.
Vale and Basto appear visibly embarrassed by the child's dramatic performance.
A voice questions if the child can actually maintain her serious act.
Vale warns the child to avoid using childish speech while in character. The group discusses using rougher clothes and rehearsed lines to look professional.
Vale demonstrates the proper, forceful way to address the Holy Knights.
Adopting a dark persona, Tyr asks if the official truly wants her name.
Vale laughs hysterically as the child struggles with her rehearsed serious lines.
The child orders her skeletal friend to strike a more intimidating pose.
Assuming a mysterious alias, the child identifies herself as the Necromancer King.
Tyr asks if her introduction was sufficient as the official cowers in fear. The official begins filling out the formal registration document for the group.
The official confirms that the mercenary registration process is now officially underway.
The group waits at a table while the official steps away momentarily.
Vale and Basto celebrate the success of their plan to enroll Tyr.
Tyr is delighted that the official viewed her as a powerful threat. Nordics expresses relief that the registration wasn't rejected due to their numbers. The elder asks the group for permission to stay with them longer.
Vale agrees that having more members is beneficial for their new group.
Nordics reaffirms his commitment to repaying the child for saving his life.
Nordics reminds the child that they must now choose a group name.
Panic sets in as Tyr realizes she forgot to prepare a name.
The group enters a deep state of concentration to find a title.
The child enthusiastically suggests naming their mercenary group the Quail Class.
Vale erupts in a furious protest against the child's ridiculous name choice.
The official formally objects to the child using her chosen dark alias.
The official notes the child is officially registered as a dark attribute mage.
The official attempts to pry for more personal information from the child.
A flashback reminds Tyr she is not obligated to answer additional questions. Basto clarifies that Tyr has no responsibility to reveal her hidden secrets. Basto notes the Empire's reliance on mercenaries gives them the right to privacy.
Vale suggests they should openly emphasize that they are hiding their identities. The official stammers in fear, unable to handle the child's intense aura.
Tyr reflects on her act while the official realizes his potential mistake.
The official frantically begs for mercy for his previous lack of respect. The official delivers the heavy news that Basto cannot receive an identification number. The official reveals that Carl Warbin of Deathhound filed a report against Basto.
Basto expresses shock and outrage at the accusations of theft and illegal acts.
The official admits ignorance of details, but cites high-level orders ending Basto's career.
Basto slams his fist, accusing Carl of committing the crimes and stealing his pay. Furious, Basto questions the Holy Knight's treatment and screams Carl Werbin's name.
Basto mourns his lost chance to protect his family as Nordics looks on pityingly.
Vale angrily questions the extent of the bribery involved in this blatant injustice.
The official remains silent, unable to meet the group's intense, questioning gazes. A dark realization about the power of bribery crosses Tyre's serious face.
A distant voice calls out, drawing attention to a figure across the hall.
In a memory, Tyre watches news of an official denying bribery allegations with an elder.
A woman explains that modern bribes are hidden in luxury bags, not boxes.
The elder laments the world state, while Tyr ponders the concept of apple boxes.
Tyre realizes that bribes are cash payments disguised in simple fruit boxes.
Determined, Tyre concludes that Carl used bribes to manipulate others and torment Basto.
The official sighs heavily, admitting he is already fully aware of their difficult situation.
The official explains that Carl's contact is a powerful commander appointed by the Emperor.
The official cautiously scans the room to ensure no one is eavesdropping on them.
In a whisper, the official notes the commander's reputation for excessive interference with troops. The official taps the registration document containing the names of the entire mercenary group. Vale cynically remarks that powerful figures like the commander are immune to any consequences. The official agrees, noting that the commander is even blocking new registrations like theirs.
The group realizes that money is the corrupt mechanism blocking their path forward.
Nordics shakes his head in despair at the impossibility of the situation.
Basto despairs, noting that Carl has already stolen every bit of their reward money.
Basto reflects on how his only hope for family vengeance is slipping away.
Vale urges the group to prioritize escorting their leader into the order first.
Tyre erupts in a shout, demanding to know the exact amount Carl paid.
The official stammers in confusion as Tyre's presence begins to fill the room.
Tyr slams the table, calling Carl a dog while demanding the bribery figure.
The official mentions a chest of banknotes, triggering a sudden, bright realization in Tyr. Declaring she will compete with something better, Tyre opens her small pink backpack. A hoard of sparkling, high-value jewels spills out from the child's small backpack.
Tyre proudly presents the gems as a welcome gift from her bone friends.
A flashback reveals skeletons offering Tyre treasure in the forest to cheer her up.
Tyr previously declined the gifts to rush to the aid of Basto and Vale. Now Tyr calls upon her skeletal friends to provide the wealth they need.
Tyre dramatically declares that the great Archmage Necromancer King has far more to give. Mocking petty banknotes, Tyre promises to provide even more wealth openly and grandly. The official, Basto, Nordics, and Vale are all frozen in absolute speechless shock. Stunned by the success, Basto receives his new identification number from the official.
The official confirms registration is complete and asks for the mercenary group's name.
Vale desperately shouts to stop Tyr before she suggests naming the group Quail Class.
Tyre holds the official registration document with a look of immense, glowing pride.
The group is impressed by the name Tyr chose, which is written as Agavert.
Tyre explains she created Agavert by reversing the name of the top-ranked group, Travaga.
The official formally accepts the name and wishes the Necromancer King much success. Celebrating their victory, the group departs for the order with Tyr leading the way. Overcome with emotion and gratitude, Bastos softly thanks Tyr for her incredible help. Bastos' eyes well with tears as Tyr notes his emotional state with curiosity.
Tyre reflects on her father's kindness while helping Basto.
Vale warns Tyr to maintain her serious Necromancer King expression.
Basto suggests enjoying a delicious meal back at the inn.
Basto warmly promises to help find Tyr's missing father.
The scene shifts to Pearl City, a bustling port town. Livia rushes into a tavern shouting about breaking mercenary news.
Victor dismisses Livia's news about the new mercenary group registration.
Victor scolds Livia for disturbing their leader's rest with gossip. The dark-haired leader lets out a deep, weary sigh.
Tessiton Veronio is introduced as the leader of Group Travaga. Livia defends her scoop, telling Victor to ignore her then.
Alaric confirms that a strange and powerful mage has appeared. Alaric identifies the new mercenary group leader as a mage. Other tavern patrons are stunned by news of Crage.
Victor notes that mages are exceptionally rare and highly trained.
Victor claims that mages are essentially considered monsters among men. Alaric describes the dark mage who summoned a skeletal horde. Patrons wonder if such legendary magic could actually be real. Tessiton listens quietly while contemplating the news of the mage.
Alaric and Livia discuss the mage leading a new group.
Alaric calls the mage an oddball for forming their own group.
Tessiton ponders the name Agavert while dismissing the other members.
Tessiton recognizes Basto as a former vice captain from Deathhound.
Tessiton searches the documents for the mysterious necromancer's name.
Tessiton laughs hysterically at the mage's lack of a name.
Tessiton finds the eccentric mage to be quite an interesting figure.
Patrons mock the mage for choosing such a dramatic alias.
Tessitin mockingly tells his team to be wary of the mage.
Reaper, the second-rank leader, furiously yells at the cocky Tessitin.
Tessitin remains the world's strongest mercenary and top-ranked group leader.
Tessitin mockingly questions Reaper's chances of ever taking first place.
Tessitin tells Reaper that intelligence is required to reach the top.
Tessitin threatens to stop leaving targets for Reaper to fight. Reaper screams in rage as the Travaga group departs.
Tyre happily enjoys Granny's cookies in the warm afternoon sunlight.
Vale asks if the cookies are truly that tasty, Archmage. Tyr is confused by the title before Vale explains the role.
Tyr is delighted by her persona and thinks Vale is impressive.
Tyr tells Vale she can use her real name privately.
Vale suppresses a laugh at the child's adorable, serious demeanor.
Vale asks if Tyr truly enjoys the Necromancer King title.
Vale pokes Tyr's cheek while she considers the cool nickname.
Tyr explains that all the strongest characters have cool nicknames.
Tyr compares her dark persona to wearing a game skin. Tyr calls Vale dumb for not understanding her gamer logic.
Tyre excitedly greets Basto and Nordics as they return.
Basto and Nordics arrive carrying the new mercenary group clothes. Tyr rushes toward Basto to see the new group uniform.
Basto reveals a white cloak featuring a cute bunny mascot.
Tyr is mesmerized by the adorable mascot on her new cloak. Vale is absolutely appalled that Tyr chose a pink bug mascot for their cloaks.
As Tyr reels from the insult, Basto reminds Vale that Tyr's leadership must be respected regardless of the circumstances. Vale argues that a cooler symbol should have been used instead of a bug, while Tyr trembles in despair.
Tyr feels deeply insulted by Vale's rude comment.
A flashback reveals Tyr and her grandfather spent hours carefully drawing the beloved mascot they called Totonapang.
When Vale attempts to erase the mascot with ink, Tyr lunges forward and bites her arm in a desperate protest.
Vale screams in disgust at the bite, while Tyre insists she is a child and not a dog.
Vale is furious about being bitten as Tyr's pink backpack sits nearby. Tyre wails in protest as she is pulled away from the confrontation.
Vale notices blood on her hand just as a dark wing suddenly manifests in the room.
A dark presence accuses Vale of insubordination while a small black creature watches with glowing eyes.
The small black creature readies its tail and claws.
Tyr, Basto, and the Elder are horrified by the bloody injury on Vale's hand.
Tyr is surprised to see Kamang standing so proudly.
Vale asks Tyr if she ordered her summon to attack her.
Tyr frantically shakes her head, denying any involvement in the creature's sudden, aggressive outburst.
Basto intervenes, telling Vale to stop interrogating the confused child. Basto explains that Tyr hasn't had her powers long enough to maintain control, but Vale remains irritated.
Basto bluntly warns Vale to back down because she would surely lose a fight against them.
Kamang lets out a mocking smirk as the tension continues to rise.
Vale smiles menacingly as Tyr desperately tries to stop her from starting a fight.
Tyr commands Kamang to follow her into the truth room for a serious talk.
With a determined expression, Tyr places her hand on Kakamang's head to guide him away.
Tyr stands over Kamang, ready to scold him.
In a memory, a student cries to a teacher about being pushed and scraping a knee.
The flashback explains that receiving a sad sticker is the only way to be released from the truth room.
Returning to the present, Tyr sternly declares that hurting someone on purpose is an entirely different matter.
Tyr asks how Kamang could hurt Vale, but the creature simply lets out a long, bored yawn.
Ignoring the lecture, Kamang lazily rolls onto his back on the floor.
Tyr is stunned when Kamang claims his actions were his own choice rather than offering an apology.
When Tyr insists that hurting people is wrong, Kamang points out that she bit Vale as well.
Defeated and embarrassed, Tyr quietly mumbles that her bite wasn't actually that hard.
Tyr eventually softens her tone, praising Kakamang for his effort in reaching the gate.
Kamang sighs, calling himself pathetic for needing to hibernate after using his powers to turn back time. Tyr encourages Kamang to rest, noting that touching different dimensions must be incredibly difficult.
Kamang advises Tyr to maintain her Necromancer King identity as a shield to hide her true self.
Kamang and Tyr agree to let others believe he is merely a permanent summon.
Tyr wonders if Kamang is also hiding his true identity for a specific reason.
Tyr reflects on the importance of protecting one another.
Tyr enthusiastically promises to keep Kakamang's secret as a legendary puppetmon.
A sudden, brilliant light flashes before Tyr's eyes.
Kamang transforms into a young, black-haired boy with cat ears who introduces himself as Lucario.
Tyr stares in absolute awe at the boy's human form.
In a tender moment, Tyr and Lucario lean their heads together as Tyr begins to cry.
Overwhelmed with emotion, Tyr lunges forward and pulls Lucario into a tight embrace.
Tyr tearfully thanks Lucario for all the support and help he has provided her.
Lucario remains quiet, looking at Tyr with an intense and serious gaze while she holds him. Tyr's nose begins to run from crying, and Lucario watches her with a blank expression.
Lucario reminds Tyr about entering the order tomorrow and promises to repay her kindness. Tyr suggests Lucario rest in her back and that they keep using the name Kamang for them.
Tyr pulls Lucario by the hand, insisting they go apologize to Vale.
Lucario looks back with an intense slit pupil red eye.
A flashback shows blue magical energy awakening Lucario while Tyr cries nearby.
Tyr happily offers a gold locket to Vale as a peace offering.
Vale remains skeptical while Basto and Nordics watch the interaction.
Tyr is shocked that the locket appeared, while Vale accepts the apology. Clinging to Vale's leg, Tyr begs her not to erase the mascot.
Basto reminds Tyr she must act as the serious Necromancer king outside. An elderly couple waves goodbye to the group from their doorstep.
Cloaked in white, the group sets out on a rocky mountain path.
Basto carries the group's leader through a crowded, sunny city street. Tyr reflects on the stunning scenery that reminds her of television.
Entering Talokium, Tyr gazes around at the beautiful city in wonder.
Amidst a desert, Vale suggests renting a carriage to travel. Basto argues they must save money for the rest of their journey.
Vale reminds him they are penniless because of an earlier bribe. Narration describes the desolate scenery caused by magic stones years ago.
Vale notes Nordic's surprising stamina as they trudge through the desert.
Basto carries the sleeping child, noting it's easier to move while she rests.
A flashback shows Tyr's father explaining their arrival was an accident.
Tyr's father continues his story as the young girl listens intently.
He expresses his belief that they will find a way home.
Young Tyr confidently encourages her father, saying they can go home.
Tyr's father hugs her tightly, promising they will return home together.
Tyr reflects on how hard and scary it must have been for Anne.
She feels grateful she met Basto instead of wandering the forest alone.
Her father's stories provided her comfort in this unfamiliar, strange world.
Tyr watches her father at night, realizing the burden he silently carried.
Close-up of Tyr's face as she reflects on her father's silent strength. A thought bubble shows Tyr urging her father to wait a bit longer.
Sleeping in Basto's arms, Tyr dreams of giving jewels to her father.
The group continues their trek across the vast sandy desert dunes.
They arrive at Pearl City, a bustling port on the Order's outskirts.
Nordics observes that the port city hasn't changed since his last visit.
Exhausted after walking for 2 days, Vale questions Nordic's incredible stamina.
Basto suggests securing an inn and getting settled before visiting the weapons district.
Nordics recommends the Red Glove Inn because it accepts payment on credit.
He notes the inn is ideal for gathering information about Tyr's parents. Nordics enters the building to check for available rooms for the group.
Basto explains the child is exhausted from their rough travels and camping.
A memory shows the group struggling to escape a dangerous sand trap.
Vale and Basto argue about their group's reputation while setting up camp. Vale scolds Basto for letting the group's dignity drop while Tyr sleeps.
Basto grows impatient waiting for Nordics to check for room vacancies.
They finally enter the inn and find Nordics waiting by the counter.
Rudy, the red-haired innkeeper, explains there are no rooms available right now.
Nordics and Vale are confused by the news of the full inn.
Rudy explains a guest heading to the Order should be checking out soon. Vale is stunned as she recognizes the name of the guest, Tessitan.
Tessitan from Group Travaga enters, questioning the innkeeper about his busy business.
Tessitan lets out a long, tired yawn.
Tessitan agrees to head out as Vale watches him skeptically, thinking that a monster is simply a monster.
A powerful presence emanates from the man known as Tessitan.
Tessitan looks back as Basto prepares to depart. As Tessitan wonders about a possibility, a companion calls him to hurry because the boat has arrived, so he gives the order to move out.
The heavy doors slam shut as the mysterious group departs.
Basto and Nordics acknowledge the man's impressive presence, while Vale questions the rumors of his noble yet vulgar swordsmanship, wondering if his defeated opponents were simply making up excuses.
Rudy laughs, noting that rumors always follow Tessitan, the leader of Travaga.
When Basto asks for more details, Rudy jokes about not losing a regular customer before Basto sternly asks about their room.
Tyr drifts in a dream, hearing her father's familiar voice.
In her dream, Tyr watches her father book the last available room at an inn. Tyr slowly blinks her eyes as she begins to wake. Tyr bolts upright in an unfamiliar room, startled, while Basto asks if he woke her and Vale tells her it is time to get up anyway.
Nordics explains they are at an inn in Pearl City, and Tyr rushes to the window to see the view.
Basto tells Tyr to stay in the room while they handle business, and she enthusiastically promises to be good.
The door closes, leaving the young girl alone in the room.
Basto decides they should head downstairs to the dining hall to gather information about the Luminen family and Kim Young-soo.
The scene shifts to the bustling Red Glove Inn basement dining hall. Watching from her window, Tyr reflects on her father's description of Talokium's beauty.
Tyre hums a song about ships and ports while watching the harbor. Nordics asks a local about Kim Young-soo, but the man claims he has never heard of such a name. An angry man yells at Basto, asking why he is only interested in the Holy Knights after being gone for so long. Basto remains calm as he stares back at the shouting man. Vale confronts the man, telling him to shut up if he doesn't know anything, and questioning why he is acting so high and mighty. Vale provocatively asks if the man is just lying to make himself feel important because of his size. The man drinks heavily and vows to tell them everything he knows about the Luminen family. Tyre suddenly notices something outside the window that catches her attention. Tyr spots a man in the distance who bears a striking resemblance to her father. Shocked, Tyr wonders if she is simply seeing things because of her dream. Tyre watches as the group of cloaked figures walks away. Driven by hope, Tyr abandons her room and runs through the inn. Following the path toward the blue roof, Tyre races outside.
The bright sun shines over the busy port of Talokium.
Tyre sprints through the crowded market, desperately trying to catch up. Tyr realizes the man isn't just a lookalike. She is certain it is her father. The Luminen family is represented by a grand and ornate sword. The family is famous for producing the Empire's most powerful Holy Knights. The informant reveals that the head of the family, Valentia Luminen, has 4 sons who all hold high positions in the order. The 3 famous sons are Edmund, the tactical advisor, Leonardo, the division commander, and Alexander, the chief medical officer. Vale remains unimpressed, stating she already knows all of this. As the informant begs them to listen, Vale asks what kind of family the Luminen are that only he would know about them. The informant explains that while 3 sons are famous, the 4th son's whereabouts are a complete mystery.
Basto and Vale wonder if the 4th son could have run away with a child, but the informant notes the youngest son only became an adult last year, making the math impossible.
Tyre weaves through the legs of the crowd, shouting for the man to wait.
The timeline for a 4-year-old child does not fit the youngest son's age.
Tyr runs with all her might toward the departing Sips. Tyr reaches out as she finally closes the distance.
Vale narrows her eyes, realizing there is only one other logical possibility. Tyre bumps into a pedestrian and falls, while someone suggests they keep moving past the trembling child. The harbor stands busy and indifferent as Tyr watches the ships.
Ty runs toward the ocean, shouting about meeting her precious daddy.
Crying out, the young girl desperately screams for her father. A black-haired man on a departing ship hears a sudden noise.
The black-haired man looks back, sensing a presence from the dock. Tyre gazes up with tearful eyes, filled with sudden hope.
Small footsteps race across the stone pier in a desperate haste.
The man's golden eyes narrow as he searches the crowded port. A warm memory of her father's smiling face fills Tyr's mind. Shock and disbelief wash over Tyr as the distance grows. The black-haired man watches the small child from the departing vessel. The boat sails away, leaving the harbor quiet and empty.
Tyr stands alone on the dock, overwhelmed by a sense of loss.
A voice questions if the head of the Luminen family had an illegitimate child.
A man yells that the Duke left only his wife, Saint Eleonora.
Basto notes the couple's famous love story and their 4 legitimate children.
Vale argues that nobody truly knows what happens within a marriage.
Vale wonders who makes the most requests to poison unfaithful husbands.
She describes noble couples as schematic bastards hiding behind happy smiles.
While discussing illegitimate children, Nordics interrupts the group in a panic.
Sweating profusely, Nordics announces that their leader has suddenly disappeared. Basto's face contorts in shock at the news of Tyre's disappearance. Vale reacts with sudden terror, realizing the young child is gone. Basto sprints through the city streets, desperately searching for Tyr. Vale follows closely behind, her jaw set in a panicked Brit. Nordics points toward the direction where the child was last seen. Basto panics after learning the child was seen alone at the sea. An internal voice tries to stay calm, noting the child's intelligence.
Vale berates herself for leaving a 4-year-old child unattended.
A desperate prayer for the child's safety fills the tense air.
The group races toward the harbor with frantic, heavy steps. They reach a desolate area of the docks near some creeks.
The group stops cold as they find a white cloak discarded.
Horror strikes the group as they gaze upon the empty pier. They find Tyr collapsed on the ground, crying out her name.
The small dragon-like creature watches over the unconscious, grieving girl.
A somber thought confirms that her identity remains a mystery. Tyr realizes that her father's memory loss changes everything between them. The stoic face of the man on the ship haunts her.
She worries that her father might find her presence annoying.
A memory shows her father calling her his most beloved treasure. Basto notes they can't go back while comforting the grieving child. Tyre cries out in agony over her lost sense of belonging. A gentle hand rests on a wooden surface in a quiet room. Vale notes Tyre's hoarse voice while Basto asks for silence. Vale looks at the sleeping child with a mix with Ketty. A thought bubble mocks the idea of a king crying for daddy.
The group discusses how none of the Luminen masters had children. Basto notes the Duke's constant presence makes Tyr's claims strange. Imperial records confirm that Duke Luminen never missed any official events.
They question who would dare use oblivion magic on the family head.
The exhausted group lets out a heavy, defeated sigh together.
The elder realizes the gravity of their current lack of information.
A warning advises against blindly trusting clues about the father's status.
Vale notes Kim Young-soo is likely an alias, while Nordics acknowledges they lack crucial clues despite the child's honesty.
They decide to ask specifically about her father while Tyr sleeps peacefully.
Basto somberly pats the sleeping child's head while Vale begins to voice her concern.
Vale questions what will happen to the group Agavert if the child successfully finds her father.
A shifting energy suggests a transition into the world of dreams.
A frantic voice commands Livia to protect Tyr as the red-haired woman reacts to her leader's desperate shout.
Livia struggles to move as she calls out to Alaric while clutching the child tightly.
A massive, terrifying monster looms over the group on a chaotic battlefield. A child's wide green eye reflects the horror unfolding around her.
The man screams for Livia to take the young lady and run while she tries to protest until he asks if she wants the child to get hurt.
Bloodied hands grip the child protectively amidst the ongoing violent struggle.
Livia flees with the infant, desperately whispering reassurances that everything will be all right. The red-haired woman collapses on the rough ground, cursing her failing strength.
Livia realizes she must reach the crack to escape, though her cold skin reveals her dire condition.
The baby cries out for her father as the narrator desperately wonders what to do.
Tyr recognizes her father's voice as he realizes Livia has been poisoned during their frantic escape while she thinks about her daddy.
Livia apologizes to her leader as she collapses while he desperately calls her name and mourns Alaric. Livia smiles through her pain, recalling their shared history from back alleys to battlefields before urging the leader to leave her and escape. The man honors the sacrifices of Basto, Alaric, and Victor while holding his child close.
In her final moments, Livia wishes to see the child walk and prays for her lasting health. Livia urges the man to be happy and laugh often before her hand drops and her life fades.
The man carries the crying child away, whispering that everything is going to be okay. He promises they will find safety once they escape the immediate danger of the battlefield.
Dark, monstrous silhouettes close in on the man and his child.
A sense of doom grows as the narrator fears for her father. Tyr bolts upright in her bed, gasping from the intensity of the nightmare.
The young girl trembles in the dark, trying to process the strange and vivid dream.
Tyr wonders if the horrific scenes she just witnessed were truly just a dream.
Tyr recalls Livia mentioning Basto and wonders if the man downstairs was once her father's knight comrade.
The child questions if the dream revealed the truth of her infancy.
Tyr remembers her father mentioning an accident and wonders if the dream was the event he meant.
Tyr doubts because her father claimed he was a holy knight.
Tyr wonders why the dream woman called her father a leader.
Tears well up in Tyr's eye as she struggles with conflicting memories.
A memory of the harbor search highlights her current sense of loss.
Kamang appears by her bedside asking what she plans to do now. The boy's red eyes search Tyr's face for an answer.
Tyr looks at her companion with a tear-streaked face.
Tyr admits to Kamang that his assessment was correct.
A memory shows the girl sitting quietly with the black dragons. Overwhelmed by confusion and grief, Tyr breaks down and cries into her hands. Kamang offers a comforting embrace as Tyr confesses how much she misses her father.
The young girl weeps openly on her friend's shoulder.
They sit together in the quiet room as Tyr lets out her pent-up sorrow. A narrator reflects on hearing familiar voices while adrift in another world.
The floating locket shines as the narrator describes feeling the child's laughter and tears from afar.
The world feels like it is shattering as the focus shifts back to the child's room.
Kamang comforts the weeping child, determined to stop her tears.
Transforming into a Goy, Kamang explains the concept of destiny to Astir.
He describes how humans inevitably meet the same fate across different lives. The boy warns that whatever the reason, the man is bound by fate.
Tyr gasps, fearing her father will suffer the same accident in Jongno-gu.
A vision of the past shows her father protectively holding her as an infant.
She realizes the same tragic events might target her father once again.
Determined to stop fate, Tyr acknowledges her father has changed since the accident. She recalls the harsh whispers of neighbors judging her father for raising her alone. Memories of her father's unwavering diligence and sacrifice fill her mind. A newfound fire of determination lights up the young girl's eyes.
Kamang smiles, confident in her ability to change the course of destiny.
A sudden knock interrupts their conversation, asking if the child has finished crying. Tyr looks back in surprise, recognizing Vale's voice outside the bedroom door.
The trio of mercenaries bursts in, insistently urging the child to eat and regain her strength.
The elderly Nordics approaches with a serious request for more information.
Curious, Tyr asks what specifically the group needs to know about her father.
Nordics explains they need his physical description and the location where they lived.
Confusion washes over Tyr as she considers their request while eating her meal.
Basto admits that their current lack of detailed information makes the search impossible.
Tyr realizes she only provided his name without any other helpful clues. The group watches her intently, hoping for a breakthrough in the investigation. With sudden excitement, Tyr declares that they live together in a place called Jongnogu.
Stunned silence falls over the mercenaries as they struggle to understand the unfamiliar name.
They question the bizarre location while Tyr wonders why they seem so ignorant of it. She enthusiastically describes landmarks and local food, deepening the group's confusion.
Tyr points to her pink backpack as proof, identifying it as a kindergarten bag.
Nordic sighs, confirming that the child's story is becoming increasingly incomprehensible.
The mercenaries despair over the confusing narrative, while Tyr insists she is being honest.
Vale decides to maintain their current course and visit the Holy Knight headquarters.
She confirms that the child is certain her father is present in the city.
Vale asks if finding her father means the child will leave their group.
The question catches Tyr off guard, making her reflect on her future.
Basto worries that the group will dissolve and he'll return to mercenary work.
Nordics contemplates returning to his previous life at the gate area.
Vale privately refuses to let the group fall apart just because of the search.
She plans to recruit the father into Agavert to secure the child's leadership.
Vale envisions the group reaching rank 1 by using the child as a figurehead.
Basto counters that mercenary life is far too dangerous for a family.
Vale acknowledges the danger but prioritizes the group's success over returning to poverty.
Dark memories of her past struggles fuel her ambition to keep the group together. Tyr grips her mug, lost in her own thoughts about her father's safety.
She resolves to use her position to ensure her father lives a long life.
The young girl vows to find and protect her daddy no matter what obstacles arise.
With a heroic pose, Tyr declares her intention to become independent from her father.
The production credits appear as the chapter comes to a close.
A final message emphasizes Tyr's bold new declaration of independence.
Basto and Nordics react with comedic shock at the child's sudden proclamation.
Vale observes the scene with a pensive and calculating expression.
Basto frantically asks if she plans to abandon the search for her father.
Tyr shakes her head, insisting she must find her father.
Sitting on her bed, Tyr resolves not to be a burden anymore.
Tyr declares her independence while an old woman and Basto react.
Basto and Nordics are stunned as Vale supports the child's proclamation.
A speech bubble notes the speaker grew up parentless from H2.
Basto and Nordics are stunned by the mercenary's revelation about her childhood.
Vale presents the group Agavert as the child's new support system. The young girl joyfully embraces her new title as Necromancer King. Vale tricks the child into signing a pledge to never leave.
Basto is baffled by the quickly drafted and restrictive contract terms. Basto admits the document lacks legal weight, but nods in agreement.
Vale directs the child to sign her name on the paper.
A calculating and satisfied smile spreads across the black-haired woman's face.
Preparing for bed, the child asks Basto if he hates holy knights.
Basto admits his dislike, while Tyr asks if it's about bribes.
Vale teases the child about her father, prompting an angry denial.
Tyr lies awake, questioning Basto's presence in her father's past.
Memories of her dream mix with curiosity about Basto's resentment.
Basto explains how the imperial family abandoned everyone except for nobles.
Chaotic magic stones and monsters once drove the empire to ruin. A map details the minimal territory the knights chose to defend. Mercenaries rose up to reclaim the lands the empire left behind.
The imperial family offered no support while others bled for territory.
Basto clarifies that mercenaries resent the Empire's choices, not knights specifically.
The Empire expanded borders only to regions they deemed useful. Pearl City is identified as one of those strategically protected locations. Nordics notes the city's large population has always attracted many mercenaries.
He describes the divine ritual performed to protect the city.
Tyr asks about consecration, and Nordics explains its meaning as divine protection.
A sacred ritual is performed to repel the magic stones and monsters.
Divine light bathes the city, symbolizing its status as a holy sanctuary. Tyr asks if it worked, and Nordics confirms the city's pace. Tyr calls the Empire stingy and wonders about her father's stance.
Basto laughs, finding the child's blunt assessment of the Empire impressive.
Tyr angrily argues that divine protection should be shared with everyone. Nordics agrees with the child as she hopes for Basto's kindness. Basto looks on with a soft expression as the child sleeps.
The scene shifts to night over the city as speech training is promised.
Morning light hits the harbor where a lone seagull flies overhead.
Sailors notice clear skies but strangely high and turbulent waves.
Raoul wonders why other ships are leaving the harbor so suddenly. Enzo suggests following the other captains to catch more fish easily.
The pair set sail, hoping to bring home a catch for Mother.
A past memory shows the brothers discussing a knight's primary duty.
A knowing smile appears on the face of their father during training.
A thought bubble notes that the father's duty is actually different.
The man declares his duty is to protect his children as promised.
The father affectionately pats Raoul's head, surprising the young boy.
The happy memory fades into a terrifying vision of a monstrous silhouette.
Raoul and Enzo scream for their father during a horrific battlefield tragedy.
A group of individuals gathers in a somber grand hall.
A blue-haired woman weeps while clutching a sheathed longsword.
She reflects on her resolve to protect her sons, Raoul and Enzo.
Raoul notices something strange caught beneath their boat during a fishing trip. A dark, magical energy swirls in the water where no reefs exist. An ominous force begins to manifest beneath the ocean's surface.
A stern voice furiously questions a woman's sanity regarding a leadership offer.
The speaker challenges the blue-haired woman's refusal to become governor of Pearl City.
Marianne feels unqualified for such a high position after years of grief.
Her mother expresses frustration at Marianne's continued isolation in her room.
The older woman warns that the boys are suffering due to her neglect.
Marianne weeps as she is urged to pull herself together for her sons.
A quiet moment follows as she gazes out at the city harbor.
Marianne assumes her new identity as the governor of Pearl City. An official advises the new governor to simply maintain appearances for the court.
Marianne resolves to be a figurehead to ensure her son's happiness. The twins thrive in the city, resuming their training and maritime activities.
Seeing them happy, Marianne wishes for this peace to remain permanent.
A sudden, deep vibration interrupts her peaceful thoughts in her chambers. The sky darkens as a strange rumbling phenomenon shakes the city.
Citizens cry out in terror as they spot a rising magic stone.
A massive structure erupts from the sea, forcing an immediate harbor evacuation.
Astir and her companions watch the unfolding disaster from a window.
The child asks if the city's magical protection has been deactivated.
Desperate townspeople beg the local mercenaries to defend them from emerging monsters. Marianne rushes out into the rain despite her subordinates' attempts to stop her.
She panics upon realizing that her sons have not yet returned from sea. Hooded mercenaries refuse to risk their lives for the panicked townspeople.
A pink-haired man desperately seeks the help of a more powerful mercenary group.
Marianne hopes a top-ranked mercenary group can deal with the magic stone.
The news of the group's departure leaves the town in total despair.
A villager denounces the present mercenaries for their cowardice and lack of action.
He compares their abandonment to that of the knights from long ago.
A hooded mercenary violently silences the old man with a heavy kick. The mercenary mockingly asserts that the townspeople are helpless without them.
He takes offense at being compared to the hated holy knights.
Marianne commands the mercenaries to stop their assault on the defenseless citizen.
The crowd is stunned as the governor personally arrives on the scene. Her aide demands the mercenaries show proper respect to the city's leader. The mercenary named Carl laughs mockingly at the woman claiming to be governor. He delivers a crude and disrespectful insult regarding her appearance and status.
A sudden and swift movement catches the arrogant mercenary by surprise.
Basto delivers a powerful punch, sending Carl reeling backward into the mud.
The bearded mercenary stands ready, finally facing an enemy he recognizes.
Carl looks up in terror, recognizing the powerful man who struck him. Vale holds a blade to Carl's throat, reminding him of their past.
She expresses her fury over the financial trouble his actions caused their group.
Astir watches the confrontation, instantly recognizing the man named Carl.
The child determines that the man truly possesses a mean spirit.
Marianne stands in the rain, shocked by the sudden intervention.
Nordics enters, causing a stir among those recognizing his wealthy family.
Marianne receives a coat while her status is questioned by onlookers. The governor is invited inside as she worries for her sons.
Astir follows the group while Vale threatens a captive mercenary.
Basto and Vale menacingly promise the mercenary a world of regret.
Heavy rain falls on the building as the group enters.
Carl seethes in the rain, his anger visible and intense.
Carl questions the mention of a new leader among the mercenaries.
Rumors circulate that the Necromancer King is a powerful monster. Mercenaries recount seeing the Necromancer King crying in the streets. A black-haired mercenary expresses his disbelief regarding the rumors he heard.
Tales of illusion, magic, and torment surround the young Necromancer King.
Speculation arises whether the powerful king will attack the magic stone. Carl screams at his men as they discuss Agavert's rising rank. The terrified mercenaries cower before their furious, one-eyed leader.
A memory reveals Carl's resentment toward holy knights and their bribes.
Carl rages at the thought of Basto and Astir stealing his position. A shadow stretches across the rain-slicked pavement. Carl laughs maniacally, determined to attack the magic stone himself.
Distressed, Marianne grips a cloth as her composure begins to fail.
Marianne snaps back to reality, apologizing for her sudden lapse in focus. Nordics reminds the governor that she was inquiring about the court.
The aide reports that an urgent message has already been sent. The rain continues outside as they wait for an imperial reply.
Aster sits silently, her expression darkened by heavy, serious thoughts.
The child asks the governor if she has loved ones lost.
Marianne is struck by the child's perceptive and chilling observation. Her facade crumbles as she struggles against the terror of loss.
She recalls the trauma of her husband returning in a coffin.
Marianne desperately denies the reality that her sons may be Dawn.
Overwhelmed by grief and terror, the governor screams in agony. The intensity of her emotional breakdown fills the quiet room.
Aster looks on with a focused and determined sense of purpose. Aster questions the rescue plan while the mercenaries prepare the pair.
Vale argues that heading out to sea in a storm is suicidal.
She suspiciously asks if the child is trying to command him. Basto and Vale express their extreme doubt about surviving the storm.
Nordic suggests that the group should focus on evacuating the villagers.
Aster suddenly declares that they will not attack the magic stone. The group is stunned by the child's sudden change of heart.
The young girl explains they will only rescue the governor's sons. She plans to leave town immediately after the rescue is complete.
Basto admits the focused rescue mission might actually be feasible.
Aster points out their group's lack of fame and financial resources.
The child signals for her companions to lean in for a secret.
She whispers that the governor's wealth is the key to their success.
Aster notes the governor's gold jewelry and lack of facial wrinkles.
The child claims she learned that rich people use money for skincare. A memory shows women discussing the expensive habits of the wealthy.
Aster hopes the governor will repay their rescue with significant rewards.
Marianne snaps out of her shock as the child approaches her.
A large ship prepares to set sail through a dark storm.
Marianne leads the mercenaries through the rain-slicked city toward the docks.
Aster cheers for the governor as Nordics walks toward the ship.
Marianne asks the young leader how she reached such a decision.
The crew hauls on the ropes, moved by the child's resolves.
Vale notes she didn't expect the kid to be this serious.
Aster encourages Basto and Vale, praising their specialized sailing skills.
Marianne weeps, clutching her locket and hoping to find her sons.
Nordics looks on with a somber, silent expression during the departure.
Nordics agrees that the child's logic for the mission is sound.
The men discuss how Marianne's wealth and status will benefit them.
Lightning flashes as the vessel navigates through the treacherous high waves.
Sailors on the dock wave goodbye and wish the crew safety.
Carl mocks the group from his ship, calling them insignificant worms.
Aster is shocked to see the Death-Hound mercenaries chasing them.
Onlookers realize the villainous mercenaries are closing in for a collision.
Aster is enraged that the one-eyed man is causing trouble again.
Production details and a recruitment notice are displayed on this page. Vale is annoyed by this shouting coming from the pursuing ship.
Basto focuses on steering and asks Vale to find the boys. Vale reports her view is blocked while Carl plots demands.
Basto holds the ship steady against the violent rain-heavy winds.
Carl laughs, hoping Basto's death will destroy the new mercenary group.
The crew braces themselves and decides to stick to the pram.
Vale holds firm to the ship's rigging with a determined look.
A small boat is seen near the massive, glowing magic structure.
The boys' tiny boat drifts dangerously close to the erupting magic stone. Vale screams in horror upon seeing where the boat is located.
A ship appears to be anchored directly to the dangerous magic stone.
On the shore, the group watches the sea with growing anxiety.
Aster panics, realizing her skeleton summons cannot reach the boy's location.
Basto tells the child and the elderly man to stay safe.
Aster refuses to stay idle while her friends are in danger. Marianne watches the distant storm with an expression of pure dread.
Aster feels compelled to help as the magic stone begins cracking.
A mysterious, echoing voice from the depths startles the young child. A monstrous skeletal figure rises, declaring it has been waiting for her.
Aster turns toward the glowing entity rising from the dark water.
Basto explains the deadly nature of the currents near the stone. Vale notes the sunset and the danger of their current pursuit.
Basto remains stoic as he continues to guide the ship through waves.
Basto recalls a past conversation about being separated from one's parents.
A memory mentions a girl named Lilia who never left her home. Basto remembers a happy, peaceful time with his wife and child.
He recalls how Carl Warbin forced him into relentless battlefield combat.
Basto looks at ruins, regretting that he couldn't protect his daughter. Basto addresses a grieving Vale who is overcome by painful memories.
Thoughts on the tragedy emphasize the desire to remain compassionate.
Vale snaps back to reality as Basto notes her long-awaited decision. Carl commands his crew to get as close as possible immediately.
Heavy rain pelts the dark, choppy waters of the open sea. Raoul reflects on the ship breaking as his consciousness begins fading.
The freezing ocean water slowly drains the young boy's remaining strength.
A firm hand grabs Raoul as a voice demands he wake. Raoul gasps awake, confused by the hooded woman shouting at him.
Vale insists that he gets up immediately because time is short.
A sudden arrow strike on the wood beside Raoul shocks him.
Carl's men struggle to aim while the waves rock their vessel.
Raoul watches the chaos of the storm, completely unsure of everything.
The magic stone begins cracking open in the middle of the sea.
Vale explains they are the good mercenaries sent to save them.
Raoul is stunned that mercenaries fight even in a deadly storm.
Vale tells Raoul to board the big ship for his mother.
The violent rocking of the boat makes it impossible to balance. Terrifying sea monsters rise from the depths surrounding the small boat. A massive wave smashes the vessel and launches Raoul into the air. A giant tentacled monster looms over Raoul as he falls helplessly.
Raoul accepts his fate as a giant beast closes its jaws.
Memories of his loving parents flash through Raoul's mind while faller.
Someone screams in utter horror as the young master falls.
Ghostly green energy illuminates the ship during the monster's chaotic attack. Raoul is baffled to land on something soft instead of lar.
The boy realizes he landed on straw provided by Astir's magic. Well, that's one way to avoid a belly flop.
Astir celebrates her successful catch while green ghostly energy swirls around. Astir assures Raoul he is safe and introduces herself as Tyr.
A spectral voice from the ghost ship awaits Astir's next orders.
Astir commands her forces to punish Carl for being Basto's enemy.
Carl stares at the mysterious glowing spectral ship in complete disbelief. Terrified mercenaries identify the ghostly vessel as the Necromancer King's ship.
Carl rages, demanding to know how the Necromancer King reached them.
Carl recalls sabotaging every ship in the village to prevent pursuit.
He realizes Agavert intended to bury his mercenary group at sea.
Carl seethes with intense anger, vowing to fight until the end. Carl's men are suddenly thrown into panic by a surprise attack. A mercenary falls in shock as the tide of battle shifts.
Vale shouts for the others to look at the child's feet.
Carl spots the young leader standing on the deck of the ship. Onlookers at the docks witness the impossible arrival of the vessel.
A villager recounts how the Necromancer King summoned the wrecked ship.
The empty ship lowered its gangplank as if responding for her. The child's whispers sounded like an invitation to the dark underworld.
Astir invites any survivors to board her ghostly summoned vessel.
A witness trembles, claiming she summoned a ship of the dead.
Marianne boards the mysterious ship without a single moment of hesitation.
The governor rushes across the deck toward her missing young son.
Marianne finds Raoul, who is shocked to see her on board.
Marianne weeps with relief while Raoul explains the Necromancer King's help.
Raoul realizes the child's true identity as he hugs his mother.
Raoul stands in awe of the child who is the king.
Astir steps onto the ship's railing and orders everyone to listen up.
She warns Carl's crew about the spectral current around her ship.
She pauses and stares downward with a deeply focused, silent expression.
Astir tries to remember her lesson while a ghost begins rising.
Green spirits swirl as she declares they will feel deep terror. Mercenaries collapse in horror, screaming that they are all going to die. Carl yells back that he's had enough of her pathetic bluffing.
A sudden wave of spectral energy washes over the mercenary ship.
Carl is horrified to find that his entire crew has vanished. Ghostly hands emerge, whispering Carl's name as he recoils in fear. A giant ghost looms over Carl as he shrieks in absolute terror.
The spirit asks if he enjoyed driving others toward their deaths.
Carl recognizes the ghost as Eve and trembles in complete horror.
Eve screams about his crimes while he desperately begs for mercy.
Basto hears the screams and recognizes the name of his wife.
Vale rushes across the deck, asking what is happening to everyone.
Enzo and Raoul are reunited with their mother on the ship. Astir cheers for her successful rescue while Vale finds her terrifying.
Basto watches the young child silently as he processes the events.
He realizes Carl is being haunted by the souls he wronged.
Astir confirms that the ship's wraith, Grimnir, told her everything. She explains that Grimnir is the ship's owner and magical servant.
The area around the moving ship becomes a domain of death. Touching the spectral current causes a victim to fall into silence.
Carl's soul is being pulled toward the realm of the dead.
Basto realizes that his wife has returned as a vengeful wraith.
The young child looks at the big man and calls him.
She relays that Eve is trapped in the depths by resentment. The weeping spirit of Eve appears before her husband, Basto. Basto looks down at his wife's spectral form with deep sorrow.
Astir notes that the place Basto stands in is also hell.
Eve's spirit says through the child that Lilia is different.
The spirit of Eve smiles gently at her husband through tears. She admits her resentment traps her, but Lilia is somewhere peaceful.
Astir catches the grieving man's attention by calling out his name.
She relays Eve's final message that he should no longer worry.
A vision shows Lilia running toward a bright and golden light. Basto breaks down into tears, calling out his daughter's name. The spirits of his family embrace the weeping man and light.
Eve decides she cannot put any more burden on the child. Basto is shown in close-up as the spectral light disappears. Eve thanks the Necromancer King as Carl is finally dragged away. Carl falls into the sea, screaming as he is consumed. A final, massive impact marks the end of the one-eyed mercenary. A parting spectral message asks the group to watch over Basto. Basto remains kneeling in grief while his companions stand by him.
Prisoners on the deck beg Basto for mercy and their lives. A captive mercenary claims they were forced to follow Carl's orders.
Vale orders the prisoners to be quiet if they want survival.
Astyr happily points the way while singing a playful rhythmic tune. Green magical energy swirls around the young girl's feet as she moves.
She explains how monsters lose strength and join her side upon death.
A massive, multi-eyed sea monster is consumed by the surging spectral energy.
Vale calls the child crazy while Basto prepares to move to another prisoner.
A blue-haired woman stands on the ship, reacting in shock to a declaration. The woman's face is pale and sweating as she struggles to breathe.
Her sons explain that they are serious about this being their only chance.
Raoul declares their firm intention to pick up the sword once again.
Their mother screams that she will never allow it, recounting their past suffering.
A flashback shows her weeping over her husband to justify their relocation.
The grieving family huddles together in a warm, sorrowful glow of light.
Narration clarifies they did not leave the order solely because of their father.
The twins stand behind their mother as the true reasons are hinging at.
She admits she was terrified her sons would share their father's fate.
At a quiet dinner, she tells Raoul and Enzo there's no alternative.
Her inner thoughts reveal a desperate plan to save Marianne using her sons.
A young woman enters a room, reflecting on the failure of that solution.
Seeing her son's broken spirits finally brought the mother to her senses.
Raoul explains they shared her fear, much like their grandmother did. A portrait of the grandmother is shown as her influence is mentioned.
The mother looks away in realization, admitting her children are correct.
She silently acknowledges that the twins have understood the truth all along.
Raoul reassures his mother that they hold no resentment toward her.
He clarifies that their choice to drop the sword was not her fault.
Overcome with emotion, the mother weeps as she realizes the truth.
A memory shows the young twins following their father's strong, upright example.
After his death, they lost their drive, and abandoning the sword hurt them.
She regrets not stopping them or pushing them to keep striving. Streaks of green light fill the sky above the ship's deck.
A vision of her husband appears, making her feel like a disappointment.
She admits she burdened her children with her own anxieties and fears.
The sons reach out and take their mother's hands in a show of support.
Enzo gently embraces his crying mother to comfort her during her breakdown.
They point out that despite quitting the sword, her fear never left.
A close-up shows the three of them joining hands in a firm bond.
The mother wipes her tears, listening to her son's final resolve.
Raoul and Enzo share a look of newfound purpose and determination.
They decide to follow the Agaver group as Astyr plays with her companions. The trio looks on in confusion at an unexpected development.
Raoul begins to reveal the hidden truth behind their father's death. A close-up of the young man highlights the gravity of his words.
Flashback images show an old battlefield where knights attacked a magic stone.
A small magic stone spawned in the middle of a residential district. Red tape and borders prevented the order from acting to save residents. Their father fought with the upper brass to protect the innocent families.
The imperial family's denial of the request shocks the listening mother.
Raoul notes this same bureaucratic delay is affecting Pearl City right now. Thoughtful narration questions the true meaning of a holy duty. The mercenaries are declared to be holier than the knights they replaced. Marianne looks at Basto with deep empathy and admits she feels the same.
Glowing particles shimmer as she observes that the power looks like holy power. Onlookers at the docks cheer as the Necromancer King's ship returns. Basto and the dark-haired mercenary walk through the crowd while carrying the child.
Villagers weep with relief and shout their gratitude for the group's protection. The elderly man tells the crowd to be calm and step back because the king needs rest.
The hooded child silently insists she is fine despite the exhausting magical feat.
She realizes her limbs feel wobbly after using so much of her energy.
Basto whispers that mages must avoid mana exhaustion and tells her to rest while.
Marianne approaches with a smile and asks to talk at the administration office.
As governor of Pearl City, she prepares to formally thank the Agavert mercenaries.
The ghostly summoned ship begins to dissolve into a brilliant golden light.
The spectral vessel continues to burn away as it returns to the underworld.
A close-up shows the magical staff held firmly as the ship vanishes completely. Only a shower of glowing golden sparks remains where the ship once stood. A peaceful, floral-patterned atmosphere marks the successful conclusion of the terrifying ordeal.
Marianne reiterates her formal gratitude to the Agaver group for their heroic rescue. The blonde child looks up with a bright, overjoyed expression at the praise.
The townspeople clap and shout their thanks as the mercenary group walks away.
The child feels her heart pounding as she processes the villagers' sudden adoration.
In a distant memory or vision, a man hears a child's voice calling for her father.
The exhausted child drifts into a deep sleep, knowing she protected everyone.
A different ship sails across the open sea near the central continent.
A man with dark hair and a long cape stares out at the sunset.
He pauses in deep thought, wondering about the strange sound he just heard. He recalls a vision of a weeping blonde girl running toward the docks. A close-up of the girl's eye reveals a reflection of intense golden light.
The dark-haired man finds the lingering memory of the child deeply strange.
A man with glasses asks Alaric if he has a secret child hidden somewhere.
Alaric dismisses the question as complete nonsense, though he looks visibly troubled.
He wonders why he is so shaken by the voice of a child he has never met.
Alaric clutches his head, haunted by the image of the girl's tear-streaked face.
He yells that it is far too dangerous for a child to be alone.
Rushing inside, he demands a communicator to check if the girl fell into the sea.
A man in a captain's hat identifies him as the leader of Travolga. Alaric requests an urgent message to Pearl City, but the captain mentions the Imperial family.
He expresses his hatred for contacting the Imperial family when they are not close. The captain asks if Alaric has ever personally seen the Necromancer King.
He mentions that a sailor saw the king during the Agavert group's visit.
The scene shifts to the busy streets where the mercenaries are walking. A small, faceless representation of the child appears in a bright yellow dress.
Alaric describes the child's bright yellow hair and clear, cute facial features.
He realizes it is impossible to believe her entire appearance was just a disguise. Alaric shouts the name Agavert in a sudden, shocking moment of realization.
He recalls information from a pub and finds the entire situation unbelievable.
He admits she fooled him and understands how she wages a battle of presence. Purple energy swirls around the declaration of the Necromancer King's masterful tactics. The young child sleeps peacefully in her bed, unaware of the growing rumors.
A voice asks the two young men if they truly want to join Agavert.
Vale looks at them skeptically, noting they didn't show much skill at sea yesterday.
The black-haired man acknowledges that they only survived yesterday because of her.
The woman is satisfied that the man finally understands her perspective.
The dark-haired boy notes the bearded man's natural strength and heavy strikes.
He expresses a strong desire to learn from the powerful warrior.
The boy worries the leader is hiding because he dislikes them.
The Agavert mercenaries note that 4-year-old children require plenty of sleep.
A smiling person suggests that the leader's personal feelings are irrelevant.
Vale boastfully claims that he is the leader's most cherished companion.
The two young men react with visible shock to Vale's claim.
A voice from off-screen sternly tells Vale to speak more accurately.
Basto asserts that he is the one the leader actually relies on. The elderly man argues that his vast experience cannot be ignored.
The woman angrily asks the old man why he is interfering.
Basto argues that he and the woman contributed the most combat support.
The recruits are terrified by the intense bickering among the experts. Skilled mercenaries are compared to concubines fighting for their lord's favor.
The text highlights the girl's surprisingly high level of leadership skills.
Aster sleeps soundly while mumbling contentedly in her deep, peaceful rest.
A spectral vision of the child floats through a shimmering purple atmosphere.
In a dream, a steer is told to choose carefully between giant snacks. The child tosses and turns in her bed while whispering softly.
A pink backpack and folded clothes sit quietly on the table.
The folded white garment begins to emit a brilliant magical glow.
Aster wakes up as a mysterious voice addresses her as a benefactor.
Sea god Saradin manifests in a radiant light to greet her savior.
The young child stares up with wide, shocked eyes at her visitor. The sea princess apologizes for disturbing the child's sleep with her arrival.
She explains she wanted to say thanks before entering a long hibernation.
Aster is confused about why she is being thanked for just sleeping. Saradin explains that she was released when the magic stone was showered.
The child thinks it is weird because the stone appeared empty before.
The spirit reveals that she was actually the magic stone's true essence.
Aster gasps in absolute shock at the goddess's unexpected and incredible revelation.
A final narrative bubble confirms the princess was indeed the magic stone.